5 skills that pay more than a master's degree. Not 4, not 6, 5. And if you don't have these 5 skills, I don't care what your diploma says. I don't care what school it came from. You are leaving money on the table every single day of your life. I've sat across the table from Harvard MBAs who couldn't sell a bottle of water to a man dying of thirst. I've watched kids with a piece of paper worth $200,000 get out earned by a 19-year-old with a laptop and zero fear. That's not an accident. That's math. School teaches you to answer questions somebody else already knows the answer to. Business pays you for solving problems nobody has solved yet. Those are 2 completely different games, and nobody tells you that until you're standing there with debt and a degree and no idea how to turn either one into a paycheck. I dropped out of nothing. I want to be clear. I finished school, but everything that actually made me rich, I learned after I walked off that campus in bars on sales calls, getting doors slammed in my face. So today I'm giving you the real curriculum, the one they don't teach. Stick with me because by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what to work on starting tonight. And before I go any further, I need you to do one thing for me. Hit subscribe right now. I'm not saying that because I need the number to go up. I've got enough money, trust me. I'm saying it because what I'm about to give you took me 30 years and a lot of failure to figure out, and I'm handing it to you for free. Companies charge thousands of dollars for this kind of coaching. So the least you can do is subscribe before we go any further. Consider it a fair trade. Now, let's get into it. The first skill, and I'll fight anybody who tells me otherwise, is selling. Not the sleazy, pushy, say anything to close the deal kind of selling. Real selling. Because here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Everything is sales. When I was 12 years old, I was selling garbage bags door to door in my neighborhood in Pittsburgh because I wanted money for a pair of basketball shoes. Nobody taught me a script. I figured out fast that if I just talked to people about garbage bags, they would close the door. But if I asked them what they actually needed, if their trash can was too small, if they had a dog that tore through bags, I sold 3 times as much. That's the whole secret. Selling isn't talking, it's listening, then solving. And when I started my first real company, selling computer software out of my apartment, I didn't know anything about databases. I had to learn the product overnight, every night, so I could speak to customers like I'd built the thing myself. Nobody's born knowing how to sell. You build it the same way you build a jump shot, by taking 1,000 bad shots until they start going in. Every founder I've ever backed on Shark Tank, every single one, whether they're selling a hot sauce or a phone case or a piece of software, wins or loses based on one thing. Can they make a stranger believe in what they're holding? You can have the best product on planet Earth, and if you can't explain why it matters in the first 30 seconds, it dies in your garage. Nobody buys the best product. They buy the product they understand the fastest. And here's something that took me way too long to learn. Selling is not something you do to a person. It's something you do for a person. The moment I flipped that switch in my head, every conversation got easier. I stopped thinking about closing the deal and started thinking about solving the actual problem sitting in front of me. If the problem wasn't a fit for what I was selling, I told them straight up. And more often than not, that honesty came back around later as a referral or a bigger deal down the road. People remember who was straight with them. They remember it a lot longer than they remember a slick pitch. And look, I get the resistance to this. Nobody grows up dreaming about being in sales. It's not the job you put on a college application. But strip away the stigma and look at what the job actually is. Understanding people better than they understand themselves, and then giving them a clear reason to say yes. That is one of the most valuable abilities a human being can have in business, in relationships, in raising kids, in every negotiation you'll ever walk into for the rest of your life. So here's your assignment on this one. Go sell something this week. Doesn't matter what. Sell your neighbor on trying your leftover cooking. Sell your boss on your idea in the next meeting. Get comfortable hearing the word no, because the word no is not rejection, it's data. It tells you what to fix. The people who get rich are not the people who never hear no. They're the people who keep dialing after they hear it 50 times in a row. The second skill is the one that actually built my fortune, and it's this: learn to build the thing yourself. I don't mean to become a professional coder. I mean, stop being the person who has an idea and needs to hire 3 people before you can even test it. When I started in the software business in the early days of the internet, I didn't understand streaming audio. So I bought books and I sat in my apartment at 2 in the morning teaching myself how the technology worked line by line until I understood it well enough to build a prototype with my own 2 hands. That's how broadcast.com got started. 2 guys who refused to wait around for permission, who just built it. Here's what nobody tells you about business school. It teaches you how to manage a company that already exists. It does not teach you how to make something out of nothing. The internet changed everything because suddenly a kid in his bedroom with a laptop had access to the same tools as a Fortune 500 company. That's still true today, except it's even easier now. You can learn to code for free. You can learn video editing for free. You can learn how to build a website, run ads, edit audio, design a logo, all of it for free right now, tonight, on your phone. The only thing standing between you and building something real is whether you're willing to sit down and grind through the boring, frustrating part of learning it. Most people won't. They want the shortcut. They want somebody else to build it for them. And that's exactly why the people who do learn to build things themselves have such a massive advantage, because their competition quit before they even started. I remember sleeping on the floor of my apartment because I'd rented the place with 5 other guys just to save money. All of us broke, all of us grinding on the same dream. Nobody was coming to save us. Nobody was going to build the product for us while we sat around waiting for a check to clear. So we learned. We stayed up reading manuals that put you to sleep after 10 pages, and we kept going anyway because the alternative was watching somebody else build our idea first. That's the real cost of not learning to build things yourself. It's not that you fail, it's that somebody else succeeds with your exact idea while you're still waiting for permission. And I want to be clear about something. This isn't just for tech founders. If you're a chef, learn to shoot and edit your own video so you can show the world your food without waiting on a marketing agency. If you're a contractor, learn basic bookkeeping software so you're not paying somebody $400 a month to do math a computer can do for you. The specific skill changes depending on your industry. The principle never changes. The less you depend on other people to bring your idea to life, the faster you move. And speed is the one advantage money can't always buy back. I don't care what industry you're in. If you can build a rough version of your idea yourself without needing a partner, without needing funding, without needing permission from anybody, you have already beat 90% of the people who had the exact same idea and never acted on it. A master's degree tells the world you can study something for 2 years. Building your own product tells the world you can create something out of thin air. Only one of those things makes you money on a Tuesday. The third skill is public speaking, and I mean real public speaking, the kind where you can stand in front of a room or a camera or one nervous investor and make your idea land. I used to be terrified of this, genuinely terrified. The first time I had to pitch investors for real money, my hands were shaking so bad I had to hold the podium just to keep them still. But here's what I figured out. The fear never fully goes away. You just get better at using it. Nervous energy and excited energy feel exactly the same in your body. The only difference is the story you tell yourself about it. Once I understood that, I stopped trying to calm down before I spoke, and I started channeling that energy into the pitch instead. Now think about why this skill matters so much. Every single opportunity in your life, a job, a raise, an investor, a customer, a partner, comes down to a moment where you have to explain why you're worth betting on. If you can't do that clearly, confidently, and quickly, it doesn't matter how good you actually are, because nobody will ever find out. I've watched brilliant entrepreneurs walk into that Shark Tank and completely blow it. Not because their business was bad, but because they couldn't tell us why it mattered in under 2 minutes. Meanwhile, I've seen mediocre businesses get funded because the founder knew exactly how to make us feel the size of the D. Opportunity. That's not fair, but that's how the world works. And once you accept that, you can start training for it. Here's how you train. Record yourself talking about your business, your idea, your resume, whatever it is, for 60 seconds, no notes. Watch it back. You'll cringe. Everybody does the first time. Do it again tomorrow. Do it every day for a month. You will not recognize the person talking by the end of it. Clear, confident communication is a rep-based skill, exactly like shooting free throws. Nobody's born good at it. They just put in more reps than you did. And I want to give you one more piece of this, because it took me years to figure out. The goal is never to sound like the smartest person in the room. The goal is to be the clearest person in the room. And I've sat through pitches loaded with jargon, buzzwords, $10 phrases that were supposed to make the founder sound impressive. And every single time, my eyes glazed over and my wallet stayed shut. Then I've heard 8-year-olds explain a lemonade stand business better than some Wall Street guys explain a $100 million deal, because the kid just told me what it was, what it cost, and why I'd want it. That's the whole game. If your grandmother can't understand your pitch, it's not ready. Simplify it again. Cut the fancy words. Cut the acronyms nobody outside your industry has ever heard. And the person who can explain the complicated things simply is always, always more persuasive than the person who explains the simple thing in a complicated way, because complication feels like a wall and clarity feels like an invitation. The fourth skill, and this one will save you more money than it earns you, is understanding how money actually works. Not economics theory, not some equation on a whiteboard. I mean the practical stuff. What an asset, what a liability, how debt compounds against you if you're not careful, and how it compounds for you if you use it right. I grew up in a house where money was tight, and I promised myself early on that I would never again be in a position where I didn't understand exactly where my money was going and why when I started making real money. The first thing I did was learn to read a balance sheet like it was my own heartbeat. Because here's the truth. The businesses I passed on in the tank were almost never bad ideas. They were founders who didn't know their own numbers. If you can't tell me your cost to acquire a customer or your margin per unit off the top of your head without looking anything up, you don't actually know your business. You're just hoping it works out. That's not entrepreneurship. That's gambling with extra steps. And this applies to your personal life just as much as your business. Most people have no idea how much interest they're paying on a credit card. They have no idea what compounding actually does to debt over 10 years versus what it can do for their savings over the same 10 years. It's the exact same math running in the exact opposite direction. And most people only ever experience the bad version of it. You don't need an MBA to fix this. You need one weekend and a calculator. Sit down, write out everything you owe, everything you own, everything coming in, everything going out. Most people are terrified to do this because they're scared of what they'll find. But I promise you, the fear of not knowing is always worse than the number itself. Once you know your numbers, you control them. Until then, they control you. And let me hit you with one more thing, because this is the part people hate hearing the most. Debt is not automatically bad, and savings are not automatically good. It depends entirely on what that money is doing while it sits there. Debt that you use to buy a depreciating thing, a car you can't afford, a vacation you put on a card, that debt is a slow leak in your future. But debt used to buy an asset that pays you back more than the interest cost, that's leverage. And leverage is exactly how fortunes get built. The problem is most people never learn the difference. So they end up drowning in the first kind while thinking they're being smart and terrified of the second kind because somebody told them all debt is dangerous. Same with savings. Cash sitting in a checking account earning basically nothing feels safe, but inflation is quietly eating it every single year. Whether you notice or not, money has to be doing something, working somewhere, or it's losing value while you sleep. You don't need to be a genius to understand this. You need 30 minutes with a notebook and the honesty to actually look at your own numbers instead of avoiding them. The fifth and final skill is the one that ties everything else together. And it's simply this: outworking everybody else in the room. I know that sounds simple, almost too simple to be on this list. but I mean it in the most literal way possible. When I was building my first company, I worked every single day, not most days, every day, while my competitors were taking weekends off. I was on the phone with customers. While they were sleeping in, I was reading everything I could find about the industry, because I knew that if I outworked them, eventually I would outknew them too. And if I outknew them, I would outperform them. That is not a complicated formula, but almost nobody actually follows it because it's uncomfortable and it requires you to give up things you'd rather be doing. Here's what I've noticed. After decades of watching businesses succeed and fail, talent is common, effort is rare. I have met 1,000 talented people who never went anywhere because they thought talent alone was supposed to be enough. It's not. Effort is the multiplier that turns a decent idea into a great business, and it turns a great idea into an empire. And here's the part that should genuinely excite you. You cannot out-talent me. That's fixed at birth. I got what I got, and you got what you got. But you can absolutely outwork me starting today, this afternoon, right after this video ends. That is 100% within your control every single day, forever. Nobody can take that away from you, and nobody can hand it to you either. The people who make it in business are almost never the smartest people in the room. They are the ones who refuse to stop when everybody else quits. And I used to tell people that I looked at business like it was a race with no finish line. And whoever was still running when everybody else went home was going to win, not because they were the fastest, but because they were the only one left on the track. That's not a motivational poster line. That's literally how it played out for me over and over again. Deals that fell through for other people came back to me because I was still following up 6 months later when everyone else had moved on. The customers that other companies gave up on became my best accounts because I kept showing up after the 10th no. Effort compounds exactly the same way money compounds. 1 extra hour a day doesn't feel like much at the moment. But stack that up over a year, over 5 years, over a decade, and you've created a gap between you and everybody else that talent alone could never close. The people who skip this skill are always looking for the hack, the shortcut, the one trick that lets them avoid the grind. I'm telling you right now, there is no hack for this one. The work is a hack. Showing up when you don't feel like it is the entire advantage. So here's the deal I'm making with you right now. I've handed you 5 skills that will outperform any degree on any wall in any office in this country. Sell without shame, build it yourself, speak so people listen, know your numbers cold, and outwork the competition until it isn't a competition anymore. None of this costs $200,000. None of it requires 4 years in a dorm room. It requires you to actually go do it starting today, not next Monday, not after the holidays, today. Here's my challenge for you. Pick one of these 5 skills, the one you're weakest at, and go take one action on it in the next 24 hours. Make one sales call, build one small piece of something, record one 60-second pitch, review one bank statement, work 1 extra hour tonight instead of watching another video. That's it. That's how empires get built. One uncomfortable action at a time. Don't wait until you feel ready, because you will never feel ready. Nobody does. I sure didn't when I was knocking on doors selling garbage bags or sitting on the floor of that apartment teaching myself software at 2 in the morning. Readiness is a myth people use to justify staying comfortable. Action is the only thing that has ever actually moved anybody forward in business or in life. If this video actually helped you, drop a comment and tell me which of these 5 skills you're going to work on first. I read every single one of them. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button, because I've got a lot more of this coming, and none of it is going to cost you 200 grand. See you in the next one.